Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani. I have with me in the studio today guests Dominic Omolo. Dominic Omolo is a Kenyan, but he lives and works in Aachen, Germany, right?
Yes.
Dominic Omolo has a long experience working at the United Nations, and then right now he works in Europe, in Aachen, Germany, with Missio, that is one of the biggest Catholic organizations helping different dioceses across the developing world. So with his experience working for Missio, his experience working for the United Nations for many years, you have come at a time soon after Trump arrived and USAID is in crisis. Some people are saying that USAID may not return as we used to know it before. And we are hearing that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, or even millions of people are affected by the suspension of the activities of USAID. I am told that so many countries in Africa depend on USAID to provide HIV drugs for their HIV patients, to provide malaria drugs for malaria patients, intervention in several humanitarian crisis areas. Just the suspension of USAID is making so many people panic across Africa, and that the whole HIV work across the continent is in jeopardy or is in peril on account of suspension of activities of USAID. Now, you have worked in those terrains in humanitarian crisis area for many years, and you are still working in an agency, Missio, that is supporting the church in Africa and in Asia and in Latin America. Question I want to ask is, you are an African. How come that African leaders, political leaders, corporate leaders, religious leaders, how come that we cannot take care of basic humanitarian issues that we have to rely on USAID? To the extent that if there is a major reorganization of USAID, we are all panicking. What's going on?
Yeah, thank you very much, Father George, for this quite interesting topic. I think I would say personally that it could not have come at a better time, what is happening now.
To USAID?
Yes, the issue of USAID, what has happened now, Trump coming in power and dismantling USAID, and actually dismantling the entire machine for the American foreign development interventions.
You think it's a good thing?
Yeah, I think personally, I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing because it is a wake-up call actually to our African leaders and to all the global leaders who have been depending on USAID and other instruments of American foreign development aid, especially looking at what the funds of USAID was doing. I think USAID, as has been rightly said, was a critical funding for the health sector in many countries. But when you look at the very idea behind humanitarian assistance.
Yeah.
Humanitarian assistance is supposed to be happening where there are two things. Either a natural disaster has hit the country, yes, and the government does not have resources to respond
adequately.
Yeah, adequately to this crisis. Yeah. Or it is it can either be natural or man-made. Man-made, like in the question of war. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this case, using USAID funding for something that has a long term, yeah. HIV, for example, you have given the example of HIV programs. Yes. HIV is something that when you have it, you live with it for the rest of your life, and it is not a health crisis any longer.
It's not an emergency.
It's not an emergency as such. Yeah. Now you manage it. Yeah. It is a disease like any other disease. Actually.
Like Ebola breakout.
Yeah, Ebola is emergency because it is something that it is an outbreak. That's why we say Ebola outbreak.
Yes.
HIV is not an outbreak.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not an outbreak. So what has actually happened has enabled has enabled citizens who are conscious now to think clearly that we have taken it for granted that our HIV patients have been receiving assistance, but without taking into consideration that they have been relying on foreign assistance to be kept alive.
So such foreign assistance is not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable at all. It's not sustainable at all because, first of all, the activity is supposed to be part of the national budget. Every government, every year, because the government collects taxes, each government also does resource allocation of the taxes that they have collected.
In this country, Nigeria, I am aware that if you go to the Ministry of Health, their budget is likely going to be to take care of overheads, to take care of salaries, take care of the running around of the staff, and so on. But when it comes to HIV work, if they don't receive money from USAID, I think very little happens. When it comes to malaria work, if they don't receive money from a World Health Organization or USAID, nothing happens. So what you are saying now is that the suspension of USAID is a wake-up call to our governments.
It is a wake-up call to the governments that they need to put their resources at the right place. If HIV is critical for the country's health system, they need to address it because HIV also has effects on other health sectors in the country. Yeah. So it means that the government must now go back to their resource allocation and try to allocate resources to tackle HIV because it will have impact on other sectors of health. The other thing that is also surprising is that even governments that have more or less reasonable resources like South African government, I was surprised that
they too depend on
USAID for funding. I think that's why I said it could not have come at a better time. It is time for us to reflect on this over-reliance on a foreign government and also on our African leaders, because when our countries in Africa got independence in 60s, yeah, some in 70s,
yes,
most of the government, they are said they are going to tackle disease, poverty, yeah, they are going to tackle illiteracy. The three things many governments, poverty, illiteracy, disease.
And disease.
Yes, these were three main core areas that our African government in the newly independent countries said will take care of. How comes that we are celebrating 60 years of independence? 60 years of independence, they are not able to take care of people suffering from HIV in our country.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, when I began to read how much USAID was involved in the internal affairs of many countries, especially when it comes to healthcare and so on, I'm saying to myself, so what makes up the budget, the health budget of these countries? And are you really independent if such a chunk of your health sector is in the hands of foreigners? Are you really independent?
Yeah, it is one of the aspects that question actually the independence of our leaders. And as I said, our leaders bear the brunt of big responsibility in this. Every time that we have elections, the government come out with, the politicians come out with manifestos. Yeah? I think it's high time now that actually this has happened. I'm going to see Nigeria has elections in 2027. Yes. Kenya also has election in 2027. I want the government to come out and say, now this is what we're going to do to the people.
I mean, when you see, what pains me is that I even hear from experts that say that all the foreign aid that come to Nigeria, whether it is World Health Organization, whether it is USAID, whether it is European Union, that they don't amount to up to 5% of our budget. That they are much less.
No, they are much less. Actually, the number one source of funding for our country's economies are diaspora remittances. Yes, okay. I think the governments have not looked at it keenly, but the amount of money that is coming from diaspora is huge.
I think the Nigerian Office of Bureau of Statistics has started to reckon with the diaspora remittances as part of what makes up the Nigerian economy.
It is great. Actually, during the COVID period, because many people could not go to work and many people lost work in developed countries,
the amount
it went down drastically, and it is when most government realizes that the part taken by diaspora remittances is big, contributes very much to the national economy, especially to the inflow of foreign exchange. Yeah.
So the whole thing is, when you consider you have a 100% budget, this sector, meaning the foreign funding sector, that most people said is not more than 2 or 3% of the national budget. The question then is, so what are you using the remaining 97% to do if everybody is shouting and crying now that USAID is suspending whatever because they are involved in some critical area? So as governments, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and so on, what are we doing with the resources of our country? And there are countries like Nigeria that have no business begging. Nigeria was in a position during the struggle against apartheid to foot the bill in large measure of that fight against apartheid. Nigeria spent tens of billions of dollars to work for the liberation of South Africa. How come that today we are now so beggarly that USAID can say we are suspending and therefore everybody is shivering?
I think the real answer to this question relies on when you look at where does the government money go, not what has been planned by the government. They plan this, but where does the money go?
Where does the money go?
Yes, and the money goes to one same source: corruption.
Corruption.
And thanks to social media now, we know how much the country is losing to corruption. We know where the countries are losing money to corruption. Nowadays in social media, we see in my country, for example, Kenya, they put how much the government has lost by introducing shady schemes that are just meant to take the tax or the government expenditure to private pockets. Yeah. So a lot of money, actually, our former president had said that Kenya was losing per day over $10 million per day to corruption. So if you look at that, you try to multiply that per month, per year, you'd see how much is going at a waste.
I mean, the young people in your country did something this last year to challenge all that. I mean, they really fought. I mean, when the new tax bill was brought, and they really worked hard to ensure that the tax bill does not fly, because they believe that the resources that are going away for corruption, if those resources are brought for work, for actual work, then they wouldn't need to be so overtaxed.
Yes, our young people, I think they are the new opposition, I would say, because the political opposition that we have are people who today they are enemies, in the afternoon they are friends, tomorrow they are having breakfast together. And our young people have now realized that the destiny of the country is in their hands.
Unless they take the
and unless they take it on their hands, the change will not come. What is also a source of power for the young people is that they are tribeless. In fact, when they came out, they said, we belong to no tribe.
Well, yeah? This is the advantage that Kenya now has over Nigeria. The advantage Kenya now has over Nigeria is that in Nigeria, we are still tribes. And a lot of national issues are still interpreted according to what your tribe and according to your religion. What I saw with the Kenyan young people's uprising against bad governance, what I saw is that whether they are Kikuyu, they are Luo, they are whatever, they worked together as one people. And how I wish that our own people here, the young people here, can put these sentiments aside and work together as a people and take the country in their hands? Because it's clear, like you said about Kenya, it's the same here. People are shifting from one political party to the other every other day. They are moving every day. They are decamping every day, meaning that those they saw as their opposition yesterday, they join them today. So it means that you should not go and die in their war because they have no conviction, no ideological conviction.
This is what the young people have realized. Yes, the young people have realized that we are only pawns in
their chessboards.
Yes, and they are rejecting it.
Yes. So that's it. That we our own young people need to know that come on, if all that foreign agencies, all we are getting from European Union, all we are getting from DFID from the UK, all we are getting from USAID, from World Bank, and so, if whatever assistance we are getting from these agencies, the grants, if it is not up to 5% of our national budget, it actually means that we can do without them.
No, we can do without them. We can do them. There should be an addition to what already we have.
Yes.
Yeah, there should be an addition, and they remain always humanitarian assistance. It's not. They are not supposed to be
critical.
For long term.
They are not supposed to be the critical contribution to development.
Yeah, they are not critical for our national development. They are an addition to fill in some few gaps.
Yes, and like you said, I mean, you explained it very well because of your experience, that humanitarian assistance is supposed to be in crisis times. There is war, and then people are starving, and then you fly in with food to
stabilize the situation.
To stabilize
and while the situation is stabilized, you withdraw, and the government continues.
There is HIV. There was HIV breakout in those days.
When
it
was
80s.
Epidemic, yes.
It was an epidemic in the 80s.
Yeah.
So USAID come in and fund a national agency for the elimination of HIV or for the whatever, and then you move.
They are supposed to have fallen back so that the government takes over and continues the process.
There was Ebola outbreak.
Yeah.
There was COVID-19 outbreak. These are emergencies that many small countries cannot immediately take care of. So humanitarian agencies come, you mobilize resources and expertise, help deal with it, and withdraw. But we now found a situation where some of these agencies have built literally permanent structures, rented houses for 10 years. Some of these agencies are here for good, meaning they plan to be involved in these activities for the next 50 years. And so that's what you are saying, that perhaps
it was the right time.
It's the right time.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call for us, a wake-up call also for the citizens to push and try to hold into account their government.
Yes.
If HIV funds are not coming anymore, I would like to see HIV people going out in the streets and
to ask their government,
that you must give us the medicine that we need.
Because the HIV patient cannot afford his daily dose.
No, they cannot. Many of them cannot.
Yes. Just as those who have diabetes.
Diabetes, yes.
In this country today, we are told that diabetic patients need more than 100,000 in a month. Some are not earning 100,000 on total salary. So if diabetes drugs alone cost more than 100,000 naira, then unless the government steps in, how can they? Are we to wait for another international agency to come and support our people with
and replace a USAID?
And replace USAID.
It shouldn't happen.
Because if they replace USAID, one day, they too will withdraw, and then we will be back to square one.
Yeah. So it is a wake-up call for us to put into place sustainable structures for our health system.
I even believe that countries like Nigeria, like South Africa, like Kenya, should set up their own Kenyan AID, right? Kenyan Aid for International Development, Nigerian Aid for International Development, South African Aid for International Development, so that we can go to crisis areas and support them rather than be waiting. I mean, see, as you came into this country, see the amount of heavy SUV cars.
Oh, there are many.
all over the place, right?
Yeah.
See the kind of heavy, big structures you see. You told me about how surprised you are about our boulevards, the big roads in Abuja.
Big roads. Good houses.
Good houses.
I think I've seen better houses, more good houses than bad houses, I would say.
Good.
Yeah.
So you have seen a lot of, meaning that we are rich enough as a country to have an international development agency that we can send to Eritrea, we can send to
Central African
Republic, send to the Congo, the Great Lakes region where they are having a lot of crisis, rather than sit down and be expecting, doles from American agencies, and then have a Trump call us shithole. I mean, we like you said, it could not have come at a better time. Hold our leaders responsible,
Yeah, what I would say is that as our leaders, as those who the country has given probably more to them than they have given to the country, it is at their doorstep the big responsibility to continue to take the country forward, that the history will judge them very harshly when our children or the children of our children will wake up to say that at this critical time we had such a leader or we had such leaders and they did nothing, and they, instead of taking the country ahead, their action took the country backwards, maybe to the dark ages. That they will bear this responsibility not just in their lifetime, but they would bear it also when they have already gone to our fathers.
Yes, yes. So the point he has made very powerfully is that leaders, corporate leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, those that have the responsibility of moving this country forward. Our children are going to grow up. Our grandchildren are going to get up and say, so who was Minister of Education at that time in Nigeria? Who was Minister of Health in Kenya at that time? What did you do? Our children and grandchildren are going to hear of the kind of resources that many Nigerians have, especially political leaders, economic leaders, and have houses in the UK and have houses in America. Many of them have properties, expensive properties in Dubai, while their people are dying away in dehumanizing poverty.
The worst of it is normally that these properties are built or are acquired by resources that have come from a deprivation. For example, the government allocates money to build an hospital.
Yes.
Yeah, a level 5 hospital with a good laboratory. They build a level 3 hospital and cut the cost, and that money is taken
that money
and
corruptly take that money out and build houses for themselves,
or buy something for themselves.
Yes.
And then now the people are not able to get the drugs, or there's no laboratory that can be built there, or the hospital doesn't have enough beds for women who are giving birth.
It is a crime. Yeah. It is actually criminal. In the Catholic Church, we call it a mortal sin to deprive your people of basic necessities, steal those resources, privatize those resources, and use to build houses or buy houses in Europe and America, and use to train your children in some of the best schools in America or in Europe, while your people...
While the education sector, they are contributing to make it collapse.
Where the education sector is collapsing in your country, while there are still parts of this country where people are living, are studying in schools where there's no ceiling, where there's no proper roof. Some are studying under trees, while their leaders are living conspicuous consumption in other countries.
Yeah, the same with the health. You find many ministers of health, they do nothing to improve the hospitals in the country, and when they get sick, they go out
to India,
for
they are
treatment.
going to Dubai, they are going to England.
And it doesn't require much to have those same facilities here in the country. Yes. But they prefer to collapse the health system in the country and then they fly out for treatment.
It is such a shame when you hear that the president or chancellor of Germany is sick. You never hear that she is going to England or Italy for treatment. You never hear that when the prime minister of Italy is sick, that she is going to Belgium or going to India for treatment. It is only when you hear African leaders that you hear that is sick, he has a little malaria and is flown abroad, to France, to UK. It's such a shame.
Especially when the sickness is like cancer, yeah?
Yeah.
There are now cancer machines that can be managed
Yes.
locally, and it doesn't take rocket science to bring these machines and these technologies here.
No, you see what is even the worst? Nigeria has the highest number of doctors from one country in the UK or in America. Huge number of Nigerian experts in the various areas of medicine. So when they go to those countries for treatment, who are those treating them?
The same Nigerian
doctors.
Yeah.
and why are those doctors not at home? Because they have not been encouraged.
Yeah.
On this note, we'll be bringing this segment of our program to an end. I have been speaking with Dominic Omolo, a Kenyan who works at Missio Aachen in Germany, and he works in this whole humanitarian sector. He has many years of experience with the United Nations, and he is saying, cutting off USAID, suspending USAID, he says it will never have come at a better time. That this is the time for our leaders to sit up and spend the resources of our countries, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and other countries. Spend the resources of your country to take care of your people, rather than be waiting on USAID before your people can have HIV drugs or malaria drugs. I hope that our leaders are hearing and they will take correction and do the right thing. Dominic, thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much for
your
the
words
George
of
for
wisdom
this
for our
occasion.
leaders. Thank you.